Hi, Frederic.
Hey, Gaspar.
So, can you start to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. So I've been in Japan for 13 years. I'm from France, as you can probably tell, or from my accent. Um, I spent most of my career in software on the product management side. And today I manage Altera Consulting. So we are a DX, digital transformation consulting company, helping companies in Japan across solution implementation, process improvement, and data projects mostly. Um, and we work with companies from all industries pretty much.
And to understand what you do, so Portcities is doing pure ERP implementation. So your scope is broader. You do end-to-end from strategy or?
Exactly. So we really start at the audit level. Usually we do a lot of audits, as a matter of fact. A lot of projects actually are just the audit part. And we help companies defining the to-be. Sometimes they have an idea, but the objective, sometimes we help them clarify. We help them map the as-is in terms of process, technologies, pain points. Of course, they have a rough idea, but we help them uncover that and help them define, what they need to implement to tackle their objectives. And that will involve usually like software implementation, as well as tailoring the processes across this new software, and all the change management also on the people side that goes with it. So we do from this audit part down to the implementation, the rollout, and even this change management part, which also is a big piece in any DX project.
And since you live for a long time in Japan, I want to ask a question that I often have from people. How is the technology in Japan? Because people are often impressed about how is Japan in technology, etc. So I want to have your feeling on Japan tech.
They have the best faxes in the world. Now, as you probably know, there is a mislabeling probably around Japan innovation, especially on the software side. Some industries are pretty much okay or even well advanced, especially around like chemistry, new materials, machineries. Japan is still, I would say, leader worldwide. But for kind of our area, this IT environment, Japan is definitely lagging behind some of their great nations, bigger nations, like France, Israel, the US, even China now. So I don't know why this is still sticking for some time. Probably because it has this history with the big brands like the pioneers, the Sony, the Walkman, Nintendo, still there in people's mind. But it's true that things have changed.
So you say, so Japan is actually very behind, far behind in terms of technology. It's true that in the company that we have seen that in terms of ERP, they are behind Europe, but even behind a company like in Indonesia in some industries.
Right. And I mean, you have a much better, I would say, oversee of the world, because Portcities is in a lot of different countries. But I wouldn't be surprised, yes. I recently talked to a large company and talked to somebody who was transferred from their Brazil office to the Japan office, and he was sharing how much behind their Japan office is compared to office in Brazil. So that's very true.
And in your opinion, what is the reason? Why are Japanese not interested in implementing cutting-edge software, new technology? I mean, especially in terms of enterprise software.
Sure. I think there is a historical cause for this, and probably also like a cultural one. For a very long time, Japan was really favoring custom software over off-the-shelf. And really what transformed organizations for the past 20 plus years is the implementation of this off-the-shelf, this SaaS product. SaaS really changed the way companies operate. ERPs, CRM, system for the HR, HRIS, financial planning, financial software, demand planning, etc. And Japan, for a very long time and still now, prefers custom software. But the pace of innovation for a solution that you've implemented like 20 years ago, the iteration that you're going to get it's much slower than what you would get from the market. Therefore, I think this just lag accumulated over the years, and now they are stuck with a lot of old systems.
So they prefer to use custom software instead of the new SaaS solution, and it's much longer to implement and to make it evolve. And so they cannot move faster. We see that also in ERP, that in ERP the best practice is to implement as much as possible the native solution or the standard product. And the Japanese companies, more than in other places, they want to implement the current way that they are doing into the software.
So I mean that's a very interesting kind of question and approach, and that's also what we always try to recommend customers. When you implement a software, it's very important to understand how this software has been designed. And as much as possible, you want to reuse that design and change your processes accordingly. Now, they're going to be a part that's going to be custom, but you need, as you said, to have this part the smaller as possible, because customization is complexity, is harder to maintain, and
it's expensive
to
customize the software. So you get more value for the cost usually to use standard features.
Yes. Exactly. So we always tell our clients, and probably you do the same, that you're going to implement a solution. You need probably to find the solution, and we're going to help them find the solution that is the best for their needs, so that by design is the closest to their needs. But even once we select it, probably they will have to also to change their process, because it will never be 100%. So it's a two-way, I would say, combination between the two.
Yeah. So a Japanese company, they don't want to change their process, and so
that's the part.
And so they don't want to use the new software or the SaaS software or the software out of the box. But that actually, this resistance to change is actually, you can see that in most countries. So most companies, they want to stick to their old way of doing, and they want too much customization usually when they implement software, at least when they implement Odoo or ERP. So why is it different in Japan, in your opinion? Why this resistance is much stronger?
So it's maybe not different, it's maybe just stronger, as you said. As you probably know, Japan really wants to reduce risks, or what perceived risks. They need to be sure. And in many countries, there is an acceptance level. It could be high, it could be 98%, 99%, 99.5%. In Japan, it has to be 100%. Until you reach this 100% certainty that whatever you're going to implement is going to be working the way it should, it's unlikely that you're going to have anything moving forward. So very often this planning phase takes a lot of time, because they need to be sure. So many things to check across so many stakeholders.
Yeah, we saw that in all decisions. They want to make the perfect decision.
It has to be
and
perfect,
so each decision, it will take 3 months. The same decision that you will make in 1 week in another country will take maybe 3 months in Japan, because they want to make sure to make the right decision.
Exactly. And as you know, failure is not very well perceived here. So it has to be consensual, it has to be certain. So either it delays the whole thing, or sometimes it just simply doesn't move forward, and they'd rather not change things because it's working. So they have a lot of processes, sometimes like pen, paper, analog, probably Excel is involved at some point, and it's working. It's highly inefficient. There are a lot of pain points and inefficiencies, but it's working. And why would you change something that works for something that is uncertain? And for a lot of stakeholders in Japanese organization, that's a trade-off they're not willing to change.
So now speaking about large organization in Japan, especially international company in Japan. So I'm interested also to know, because you have experience working with many international companies in Japan, is it also difficult to implement? So if the international firm decide to implement the same ERP or the same solution all over the world, is it working to implement that change in Japan, or do you cope with the same type of issues?
No, it's a very interesting one. So as you said, about 2/3 of our clients, there are those international companies from the West mostly. And like any large company, there is a lot of rationale to have group solution implemented in every single region. For cost reasons, for just clarity across processes, it makes a lot of sense. Very often, Japan is a black box for the headquarter. They're using local solutions, Japanese, very often in Japanese, not in English. The headquarter has no visibility why it's like this, how it works, and all the processes that are involved behind. Usually the answer that they get is just Japan is like this, it's specific, leave us alone, in a way. And when there's a global initiative to roll out a new solution in Japan, there are difficulties.
And what is your advice? What is the best solution? Is to actually to push the group solution in the Japanese branch, or to implement a specific solution for the Japanese branch? What is your advice usually?
I wouldn't have a one-size-fits-all solution for this. I think still, as much as possible, having group solution makes a lot of sense, especially for the larger one, like the ERP, the CRM. If it's something smaller for a small department in Japan, I think it's fine to have more a tailored approach. It still makes sense. but the headquarter needs to have an understanding of how Japan works and what is the approach to tackle these types of projects. In terms of change management, more particularly, Japan doesn't really like having something pushed to them too abruptly without much discussion. Change takes time, and Japanese can change, but they need to be involved. You need to discuss. You need to really include all the stakeholders, explain the why, involve them as, taking them as part of the process, and really plan with them. If it's really top down, too fast, the risk is that there would be an impression that it's moving forward, but people won't change, and they may actually revert back to their old ways.
So if I understand, your advice would be to still, you will have the same recommendation in terms of technology, but in the way you would approach it to the enterprise, you will adapt to the Japanese way, so they will accept the solution of the group. Basically.
Exactly. I mean, I would have the same advice actually for any reason. As much as possible, you need to include people as part of the change management, especially the final users. There may be a group vision, and there is a core implementation, especially like for ERP, you have a core implementation, and then you have like regional specificities. For this regional specificities part, it's really good to have, maybe workshops ahead of time, trying to gather all the specification, not just the management, but also include some team members. It's partly is really to get information from the ground. Partly is also like stakeholder management involvement, making them that they are part of the process. They are not just getting imposed a new solution. They can have an impact in terms of decision or customization as well. And I think this down the road, when they go live, will definitely change the approach of how the solution will be perceived and received inside the organization.